Come and take a seat. We have the House Chair on the House Committee of Information and Broadcast, the Honorable Alpha K. Jones. Can you please come and take your seat? Honorable Jonathan Sibwe. Yeah, can you please come and take your seat? Honorable Mr. Charles Coffey, President of the Press of Liberia, can you please take your seat? Is the Minister of Information here? Honorable Legislative Rennie is not here yet. Yeah. Honorable Alpha Jones, can you please come and take your seat on my far left? The Chief of Party of the Usaid Media Activity, Ms. Leanne Batch, can you please take your seat? The Deputy Chief of Mission, the U.S. Embassy, Mr. Joel Boulevard, can you please come and take your seat? USAID Mission Director, Mr. Jim Wright, can you please take your seat? Other team members from the USAID, can you please take your seat? Our media partners, can you please take your seat? Civil society organizations, if you're present, please come and take your seat. Our press pool, our media friends who are here to cover the program, if you are here, can you please take your seat? Government of Liberia representatives, we thank you for coming. If you're somewhere out there, can you please take your seat? Media stakeholders, please take your seat. Our partners, I see a lot of our new partners. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. You are welcome.
I have to leave at 11:05 because at 11:30 see if I leave at 11:10. Yeah, it's still in my veins. But I hope you have a rich discussion. Yeah, that's what I like to be here for.
Okay, thank you very much. We are about to start the program, and this is the official project launch of the USAID Media Activity in collaboration with Liberian media partners. We'd like to welcome each and every one of you to this auspicious occasion. We'd like to recognize the presence of the Deputy Chief of Mission of the U.S. Embassy, Mr. Joel Mayberry. We also like to recognize the presence of the Mission Director of USAID, Mr. Jim Wright, the Director, Office of Democracy, Rights and Governance, DRG USAID, Ms. Susan Truchat, the Deputy Director, DRG of USAID, Mr. Jeffrey Schultzman, the Civil Society Media and Conflict Team Lead, DRG of USAID, Dr. Mandy Daggold, Elections and Political Processes Team Lead of the USAID, Ms. Mary Zell, Robert Clark of the Public Affairs Office of the U.S. Embassy, Mrs. Benu Domain Nimle, DOC Assistant, USAID. We also like to recognize in the house our media stakeholders. But before we go to our media stakeholders, we like to recognize officials of government present from the LTA, from the Health Ministry, from the National Elections Commission, and others. From the media stakeholder, we'd like to recognize the presence of the President of the Press Union of Liberia, Mr. Charles Coffey, the Vice President of the Press Union of Liberia, Mr. Daniel Nyankona, the Secretary General of the Press Union of Liberia, Mr. Musa M. B. Kane, the Assistant Secretary General of the Press Union of Liberia, Mr. Akwe N. Besa Jr. We also like to recognize the President of the Female Journalists Association, Ms. Seattle Scott Johnson, her Vice President, Ms. Winnie Seba Jimmy, the President of the Association of Liberia Community Radio, Mr. Hector Mova. We also like to recognize the Secretary General, Mr. Kemu Dennis, the Executive Director of the Liberia Media for Democratic Initiatives, LMDI, Mr. John Colley, the Deputy Executive Director, Mr. Adam Topa, the Executive Director of CIMES, that's the Center for Media Studies and Peace Building, Mr. Malcolm W. Joseph, the Program Officer of CIMES, Ms. Ruth Battle, Executive Director of Youth Media Action, Mr. Vama Kane, along with his program team, Mr. Abraham Boyma, the project lead of Talking Drum Studio, Mr. T. Vogel Robert, the program officer also of the Talking Drum Studio, Mr. Reje Akaji, Mr. Oscar Blow from the Elections Coordinating Committee. And we'd like to recognize on the high table, we didn't forget about you, our honorable lawmakers. We saved the best for the last. So we'd like to recognize the Senate Committee Chair on Information and Broadcasting, Brevard G. County Senator, Honorable Jonathan Boyd Charles Sibwe. We also like to recognize the House Chair on Information and Broadcasting, Margibi County Representative, Honorable Ava Jones. We also like to recognize donors and implementing partners also present and have agreed to attend this program to collaborate with us. Ms. Laura Vigili, the Program's Officer Political and Economic Governance, European Union Delegation to Liberia, the Head of Development Cooperation, Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of Sweden in Liberia, Mr. Johan Romari, the Chief of Party, Civil Society Activity, DAI, Mr. Stephen Teravecchia, the Chief of Party Elections and Democracy Activity, Democracy International, Mr. Zav Flowers, Resident Director, the National Democratic Institute, NDI, Mr. Atan Alija, the Country Representative of Carter Center, Mr. James Double Jala, the Technical Advisor for Elections, United Nations Development Program, UNDP, Ms. Lenka Komakova. We also like to recognize he hasn't arrived yet, but we hold him in high esteem. The Minister of Information, Culture, and Tourism, Honorable Lejehu Reni. We are also expecting the Honorable Jalawa Etompo. Okay, he's already here. Thank you for coming. He's the Deputy Minister for Public Affairs, Ministry of Information, Culture, and Tourism, MECAP. Honorable Mrs. Edwina Krom Zappa, IT Chairperson, Liberia Telecommunications Authority, the LTA. Honorable Mr. Ezra Akinsaya, Commissioner Government Consumer Affairs, LTA, Ms. Estelle Liberty Camon, Deputy Director General, of the Liberia Broadcasting System, LBS, Mr. Soba George, Deputy Director General, LBS, Mr. Othello Gabla, he's the President of the Publishers Association of Liberia, Mrs. Cecilia G. Clark, the President of the Reporters Association of Liberia, Mr. Dafa Alpha Sekpeni, Executive Director, Local Voices, Liberia, Mr. Bar Best, Managing Director, Daily Observer Newspaper, Ms. Loretta Popka, Chairperson, National Civil Society Council, Mrs. Devietta Brown Lasana, the Chairperson of the National Elections Commission of Liberia, NEC, Councillor Sylvester Oreni, President, Liberia National Bar Association, Councillor Boaka N. Kane, the Chairperson of the Law Reform Commission, Mr. Urias A. Toga, the Chairperson of the Department of Communication and Media Studies, University of Liberia, Mr. Titus Topa, the founder and director of the Peter Kokwe School of Journalism. So we'd like to welcome you and all of our other partners that we haven't named, that you are here this morning to celebrate with us, because this is a historic event in the life of the Usaid media activity. We'd like to welcome all of you, our media partners, and those that are here to cover this program. So we go strictly into our program, and we like to call on the Chief of Party of Internews that is implementing the USA media activity, Ms. Leanne Bach, to give us the overview of the USAID media activity. Leanne, you're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to recognize the presence of His Excellency, the Honorable Mr. Leisure Rennie, Minister of Information, Culture and Tourism, Mr. Joel Mayberry, Deputy Chief of Mission of the U.S. Embassy in Liberia, Mr. Jim Bright, the USAID Mission Director, members of the Honorable Senate and House of Representatives, the leadership of key government agencies, the Liberian Broadcasting System, the Liberian Telecommunications Authority, the National Elections Commission, and other government representatives. Representatives of development partners agencies, the President of the Press Union of Liberia, representative of Liberian media institutions, including our local partners, representatives of civil society, representative of other U.S. government project implementing partners, and my local internews colleagues. All protocol observed, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to welcome you here today at the Boulevard Hotel to launch the USAID media activity in Liberia. My name is Lien Bang. I am the Chief of Party of the media activity and was previously also the COP of the last 2 years of the Liberian Media Development Program that ran from 2015 to 2021. So during the Liberian Media Development Program, we supported 18 independent media houses with technical support to expand the local community radio network and develop and implement the business plans to move them towards a path of financial sustainability. We have 100 33 community media forums, enabling over 20,000 Liberians across all 15 counties to discuss and debate on critical issues affecting their daily lives. We provided over 8,600 training days to local journalists and trained 148 young citizen journalists from high school graduates on journalism. We established a sustainable media resource center that is being used by local journalists and citizens upcountry. And since its inception, over 5,000 people have visited the Media Resource Center in Uganda. We facilitate the adoption of a new code of ethics for journalists and the establishment of a new and independent self-regulatory body, the National Media Council. And lastly, we assisted 18 journalists from 10 leading media outlets in filing over 112 Freedom of Information requests, leading to over 100 investigative journalism stories. Despite overall success, it was found that at the end of the Liberian Media Development Program, there are still several issues affecting the media in Liberia that require attention and additional support to make the media independent, sustainable, and able to publish and broadcast high-quality stories that benefit the whole of the country, especially in the rural areas. And at the same time, there continues to be a need for the establishment of a legal environment that keeps journalists safe, ensures freedom of access to information, and ensure the existence of independent media oversight. Lastly, it is necessary to address gender inequality in the Liberian media, as women continue to face numerous social and cultural barriers to fully participate in media and decision-making processes, and only account for a quarter of the national and local journalists in Liberia. With this as a background, the new USAID media activity was developed and eventually awarded to Indonews and 7 local partners. The USAID media activity is a 5-year project running from August 2021 to August 2026. And it is a nationwide program with a focus on marginalized people and underserved areas. The media activity has 4 primary objectives. The first objective is enhancing the capacity of media to produce reliable, relevant, and accurate information. We eventually increase the quantity and quality of media personnel and media products. We have an extensive capacity development plan that will see the training of journalists and media development organizations. There will be an emphasis of training and mentoring of women in the media, while at the same time providing opportunities for university and high school students to intern with media organizations and learn about journalism. We will also expand the access to different digital platforms to reach wider audiences adopting the latest technologies. We will also have the second objective, that is to improve the media's ability to serve as a conduit for information between citizens and the government. Using community media forums, including the organizations of electoral debates and providing support for health campaigns, we hope to engage local communities, women, youth, civil society to discuss and lead on local development issues that concern them. In addition, we will establish another media resource center to allow access for journalists and community members to information on government services and other topics of their interest. The third objective is to work with community radio stations to eventually improve their long-term organizational and financial sustainability. And besides facilitating the establishment of a national community radio policy, Internews and its partners will support 30 radio stations with technical capacity and business development to make them stand on their own feet with support from their communities by the time the media activity finishes. So we will also provide limited technical equipment and solar panels, including access to a maintenance network to ensure effective radio station operation and continuity of broadcasting. And last but not least, under the fourth objective of the media activity, we will work with the government and our local partners to further strengthen the legal and operating environment in which a freer media can prosper. We will engage with the government, parliamentarians, and media stakeholders to undertake necessary media reform and develop appropriate regulations that would benefit the broader media landscape. We will facilitate the establishment of a local media law network and work with the local authorities to ensure a safe working environment for journalists as and when they gather information for their stories, including having access under the Freedom of Information Law. Next slide, please. To achieve those objectives, we are partnering with 7 local media organizations that have different roles to play under this media activity. First of all, we engage with the Association of Liberia Community Radio, or ALICO, who will support the technical upgrades for partner radio stations through a network of local radio technicians and support advocacy to enact a national community radio policy. And secondly, we partner with the Press Union of Liberia, or PUL, who will coordinate with other media stakeholders to establish an independent media commission and increase advocacy for media law reform. The third partner organization is the Center of Media Studies and Peace Building, or CMES, who will provide in-station journalism training to community radio stations and build capacities in investigative journalism. It will furthermore support media law reform initiatives and follow up on the Freedom of Information Law implementation. Our fourth partner is the Female Journalists Association of Liberia, or FEJA, who will launch a broad training and mentoring program for female journalists to increase representation and support the professional development of women in the media. The fifth partner is the Liberian Media for Democratic Initiatives, or LMDI, who will organize innovative dialogues, including election debates, utilizing new media platforms to strengthen engagement between citizens and government. Youth Media Action, YMA, is the sixth partner organization. They will train and mentor young journalists in high school press club and help build the journalism skills for young reporters. The last but not least, the partner Talking Drum Studio, TDS, who will help radio partners produce specific thematic radio and video content. So partnering with these organizations will ensure local and sustainable ownership of the activity under this project. As the media activity already started in August last year, I would like to present some of the key activities we have undertaken thus far. In October and November, we provided support for the by-election debates and conducted an election and conflict-sensitive journalism training. In November and again in February this year, we partnered with UNDP and the National Elections Commission to organize 2 media security sector dialogues to prepare for the upcoming elections. We undertook a national radio assessment in December and January and mapped 163 radio stations throughout the country. You can see the map at the back of the room. Yeah, over there. Using the result of the National Radio Assessment, we selected 30 radio stations in February who will receive technical and business development support from most of our partners here. In November, we collaborate with the Ministry of Information in organizing a high-level communications training for 20 government public relations managers to enhance their communication skills and support and increase access to public information. In February, we supported Alico to organize the World Radio Day, which was the next day followed by a high-level stakeholders consultation for the formation of a national community radio policy. And lastly, also in February, using the expertise of a local and international consultants, we undertook a political economy analysis, identifying local media stakeholders that are likely to be engaged in the media reform processes. So I would like to thank you all again for your presence today. As the media activity team, we are looking forward to a fruitful collaboration to improve Liberia's media even further in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Lian. Lian is the chief of party of the Usaid media activity in Liberia. And just before I go to the next item, there was one important person that we left out. That was an oversight. Mrs. Louise Famole Jacobs. She is the AOR on the Usaid media activity at Usaid. That is the agreement officer representative on the Usaid media activity. We also like to welcome you, Madam. Sorry for that. So we'll now welcome special remarks and the official launch of the Usaid media activity. And that cannot be done by any other person but the Deputy Chief of Mission of the U.S. Embassy, because the money that is being used for media development in Liberia is from the American people. So we like to call on Mr. Joel Mayberry for special remarks and to launch the Usaid media activity. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I'm honored and excited to be with you today to launch the Usaid media activity in Liberia. I'd like to do two things, just a slight departure from the prepared remarks. And the first thing I'd like to do is acknowledge my Usaid colleagues who are responsible for these remarks. We sometimes forget that someone prepares people like me to make a good impression. And so thank you, all of you. The second thing I'd like to do is ask that we take a moment of silence, observe a moment of silence for the journalists who have paid the ultimate price in the last few weeks in Ukraine, in covering that conflict. We just take a moment of silence in memory of them. Thank you. As you think about that, I did actually look up a number that is frightening and should be a reminder of the importance of the profession that we entered, in my case, some years ago. Since 1992, 1,435 journalists have been killed in the exercise of their duties worldwide, according to the Center Tech Journalism, CPJ. 1,435. So those of us who have been or are or will be in the future exercising the honorable profession of journalism, it's all worth doing, but sometimes there is a price to pay. And when it's that heavy of a price, we should remember that that may be part of the job. Back to my prepared remarks, ladies and gentlemen. In the 7 months that I've been in Liberia, I have been impressed by the country's vibrant media sector, really impressed. And I have served in almost a dozen countries, or lived in almost a dozen countries in my life. And despite facing serious economic challenges in many cases, things are doing well here. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Liberian media stakeholders and the government of Liberia for your commitment to maintaining a free and open media environment. I think you can give yourselves a hand for that. As should have been made clear by the previous speaker, this is not just my impression. Usaid takes annual stock of the civil society and media effectiveness in every country in the world in which it works. This measurement looked at the range of actions and mechanisms that citizens, civil society organizations, and media have available to them to hold the government accountable. Year after year, Liberia scores well above its peers on this metric, an accomplishment which reflects the complementary efforts of the government, the media, and civil society. I won't keep asking you to applaud. We could be here for a very long time, but you get the point. The passage of the Kamara Abdullah Kamara Press Freedom Act of 2019 was one important outcome of this cooperation, and it has helped solidify press freedom. The US government has been a proud partner to Liberia in supporting a free and open press. From 2016 to 21, USAID's Liberia Media Development Activity, or LMD, helped strengthen media houses, increase the plurality of voices on national and local media platforms, provided training to journalists. Where are the journalists, by the way? So I know which side of it. They're throughout the room, right? So acknowledging all the journalist friends, brothers and sisters. Provided training to journalists, as I said, with a special focus on female journalists. Female journalists. Let's acknowledge a female journalist. There's not enough of you. Yeah. Next time, more female journalists. Agreed? All right. And facilitated the adoption of a new code of ethics for journalists, as well as an operational framework for a new and independent self-regulatory body, the Independent Media Commission. LMD also trained journalists across Liberia and government information officers on the Freedom of Information Law, which strengthened the government of Liberia's ability to respond to FOI requests from citizens and media establishments. This is a remarkable trajectory of success, folks. However, several barriers still remain that prevent the media from functioning effectively as a conduit for citizen voices and to promote accountability. The Varieties of Democracy Project has recorded an increase in harassment of journalists in Liberia since 2017. Let's all shake our heads together. Not good, right? No one's shaking their heads. Not a good development. At the same time, Liberia has seen a decrease in the variety of perspectives represented in the media and in widespread public deliberation when important policy decisions are being considered. Go ahead. Morning exercise. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, many, if not most, of Liberia's media companies face economic hardship. That is not news. It's been going on for a while. And often cannot pay their bills, making them vulnerable to pay-to-play opportunities. You ready? Is that okay? We get the body language. As President Biden said at the Summit for Democracy last December, quote, "A free and independent media is the bedrock of democracy." It's better than clapping, isn't it? It's how the public stays informed and how governments are held accountable, unquote. That's why it's so important to continue to strengthen Liberia's media sector as a vehicle for citizens to engage their government, to build sustainable change and national ownership of development progress. Usaid, your remarks are good. I like this. Usaid's new media activity will be an important partner in this effort. The media activity implemented by Internews will help strengthen the capacity and sustainability, important word there, sustainability, of community radio stations. Radio stations? The voice of Liberia, I love it. Newspapers and other media outlets. It will enhance the quality of journalism and expand opportunities for citizens to engage with their leaders through media. It will also work to maintain and in some cases expand existing freedoms and space to carry out responsible journalism. Importantly, the media activity will also boost efforts to support, defend, and protect investigative journalists. I love that phrase, investigative journalist. Who's an investigative journalist? Oh, that was one of my favorite parts of being a journalist when I served in that. You're an investigative journalist? Among the courageous, there's the truly courageous journalists. Investigative journalism is a hard part of the profession, let me tell you. Also protect, defend, and support other civil society media actors on the front lines of the fight against corruption. Early in my career, which would be about 5 centuries ago, specifically, I worked as a journalist from the late 70s. I began my journalism career in University, California, Davis, and until 1995 when I switched careers to become a diplomat. I worked mostly in Northern California, also in Minnesota. So these issues that I've just talked about remain near and dear to my heart. And sometimes I wake up and I think, am I still a journalist today? Are there still some instincts, some defaults in my brain that say I'm a journalist and maybe not a diplomat? That's a subject for another day. I will say that I know from firsthand experience the critical importance of a free media and the special role that journalists play in reporting objectively, serving as watchdogs to ensure accountability and giving citizens the information they need to actively participate in civic affairs. I'm going off remarks, folks. The part about Objective 3, organizational and financial sustainability, community radio stations approved, expected key result, improved and sustainable business management of community radio stations or other media outlets. Let me share with you that the entire time I was a journalist in the United States, we had those very issues, particularly when I worked for African-American owned newspapers, both in Sacramento, California and in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The latter newspaper, the Twin Cities Courier, went out of business a couple of years after I left, but there was a weekly struggle to find sufficient revenue to keep the operations running. But it's not just African-American owned newspapers. Many community newspapers, many large mainstream newspapers across the United States face these very challenges. If you do due diligence and you Google my name and Columbia Journalism Review, which is probably the foremost trade publication about journalism, you'll find an article in 1995, I think it was around that time, early 1995, late 94, where I'm quoted as a journalist who's no longer a journalist. I decided to leave the profession largely because of these financial issues, my personal financial issues, but also those of the publications. It's very difficult to work in a career that you're passionate about without also being able to support your family, right? And I'm talking about the United States, so I just want you to know that there's some solidarity here that I want to express. And these problems continue to this day. The other notes to this effect, I was looking at the list of partners and I've seen the word stakeholders. How many advertisers are in the room? Does anybody advertise in this room? Just maybe a bit, yes, USAID actually does advertise, and that's a source of revenue, but I know this may sound a bit controversial, it's maybe a topic for another day, but consider advertisers, big companies, auto dealerships, beer companies, clothing manufacturers, all the people who are looking for customers. They're a partner in the survival of journalists, of newspapers, of radio stations. They advertise, that's money for media. They advertise, it's more customers for them. I think that's called a symbiotic relationship. What do you think? So think about for the future a discussion about that and maybe inviting some potential advertisers, people who may not realize that their advertising in the different print and electronic media is a source of revenue for the media, but also a source of money and revenue for them, those companies. And this is what, as much as I worked as a reporter, the Sacramento Observer for 5 years, my publisher and I, who worked in those newspapers, that particular publication, fought this battle every single day. And the National Newspaper Publishers Association, which is an association that represents African-American owned newspapers across the United States, makes this their #1 talking point when they go meet with Coca-Cola, Ford, automobile company, and other big retailers, manufacturers, big business, and says, the readers of Black-owned newspapers are consumers. They buy cars, they buy alcohol, they buy sodas, they buy hotel rooms, they travel, they're tourists. You get it? So spend your money proportionately across the media landscape. Don't just advertise, don't just put your advertising, I'm going way off topic, folks, but don't, because I think this is important. Don't spend all your advertising bucks on the mainstream media when you have all these specialized newspapers. Okay, that's the United States. You know the media environment and business environment better than I do in Liberia. But I suggest to you, if there's no advertisers in the room today, you're missing an opportunity, and I think they are too. But I'm not organizing the conference, you are. I just wanted you to be thinking about that. So symbiotic relationship. In conclusion, as Liberia continues to take steps toward a stronger democracy, and that you are doing, with an even more vibrant and free media, I believe that, the US government, through USAID, will be a committed partner through this new media activity. We look forward to cultivating a collaborative working relationship with all of you, our key partners in the new project, government, civil society, and other development agencies, following the progress you have gained and yielding new fruits for a sustainable media sector. And let me just close with this. If you're interested in this dynamic of newspapers, their survival and trends, may I recommend the following website. If you've not heard of it, I commend to you the Pew Research Center, P-E-W, Pew, like the one you sit in when you go to church, right? Or if you go to church. The Pew Research Center, in my mind, is an excellent source of information on all sorts of things, on public attitudes, not just in the United States, but around the world. Specifically, look for a June 29th, 2021 State of the News Media report by the Pew Research Center. Website, pewresearch.org. Sorry I took a little bit longer than I was scheduled to take, but I am passionate about these issues. Good luck with the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Joel Mayberry. Thank you for that. And he has given a lead to journalists in the hall, so you can search pewresearch.org for important information that could help you in your programming. So Mr. Joel Mayberry is the Deputy Chief of Mission for the U.S. Embassy in Liberia. So we now sit quietly and view a pre-recorded message from the President of Internews, Madam Jeannie Bogart, from the United States of America.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeannie Burgo, and I'm the president of Internews. And I am so thrilled to be with you today to help launch USAID's new media activity. This program is really, the vision of it couldn't be more relevant. It's really designed to sort of empower our citizens and hold governments to account, and the critical role that media plays in linking these two things as a conduit to empowerment and accountability. At Internews, we learned long ago that there is no long-term impact of any of the work we do without strong local partners. So I'm thrilled that we are deeply committed in working with this incredible group of partners to advance this overall goal. I want to thank those partners, and I'm going to have to look at my list so I don't forget any of them. So these partners include the Association of Liberia Community Radio, the Center for Media Studies and Peace Building, the Female Journalists of Liberia, the Liberian Media for Democratic Initiatives, the Press Union of Liberia, Talking Drum Studio, and Youth Media Action. It's through our work with these incredible partners that we designed our approach to this overarching goal. We work in a co-design way with these partners. We listen to them because they know what the biggest challenges are to achieving the goal. These partners know what some of the low-hanging fruit for good impact is. These partners know the best way to deliver support to achieving this impact. So in this co-design process, we've come together and we've designed 4 streams of work to help us accomplish our goal. The first stream is the most fundamental. It's about good information. It's about working with the media to make sure that they're producing reliable, relevant information. The second goal is to build that conduit of the media to both between citizens and to government for that accountability and that empowerment. The third goal is to make sure that this all lasts well into the future. We're going to work with media to develop business models that work for them, particularly when it comes to community radio. And the fourth goal is to build that enabling environment that we know is critical to allow for free and independent media long into the future. We think the timing for this program is so critically important because of the recent Democracy Summit and the commitments that the government of Liberia made to anti-corruption, to accountability, to empowerment of women. And on that note, I am thrilled that a theme running through this program is about engaging and empowering women. At Internews, we've learned long ago that when you include women in the news, when women's voices are heard, when they produce the news, the information we all consume improves. I am excited about the start of this project. We've got all the pieces in place, government commitment, fantastic partners, incredible support from our donor, Usaid, and together I know we're going to achieve great things. Thank you for including me in this launch, and I look forward to watching all this incredible work unfold. Thank you.
Thank you too, Jimmy. That's the president of Internews, Ms. Jeannie Bogart. So we'll now take remarks. First, we'll go to the president of the Press Union of Liberia, Mr. Charles B. Coffey Jr. You're welcome to the podium, sir.
So let me stand on existing protocol. This formal launch of the 5-year project of Usaid media activities in Liberia is a clear indication of Usaid's unflinching support to media development in our country. This project will bring countless dividends to our country because it is designed to boost human and institutional capacity of the media sector while advocating for and maintaining current media freedoms to reliably carry out responsible journalism, drive reforms, and increase revenue. By meaningfully enhancing media capacity, the project will help improve the media ability to produce reliable, proper, and factual news that will serve as a conduit in disseminating information among citizens or between citizens and government. Most importantly, financial sustainability of community radio stations is key in the 5-year project because most community radio stations lack adequate funding to address their broadcast needs. As required, 30 community radio stations as partners to Usaid will be supported by the institution. Also, these initiatives are intended to increase collaboration in implementing plans and activities to strengthen the enabling environment for freer media in our country. As you may be aware, the program approach focuses on innovation and local ownership that incorporate cross-cutting themes relevant to Usaid media mission in Liberia, which of course include promoting gender mainstreaming, youth empowerment, enhancing rural voices, and improving essential services to marginalized communities. So words are inadequate to express our honest commendation to the United States government, or USAID, our partners for this worthy venture, because media development is both knowledge-driven and context-sensitive, taking into account challenges and opportunities created by the rapidly changing media environment. Because of lack of media capacity, in most cases, the situation leads to information accuracy becoming a problem. Accurate, balanced, and fair information is a perfect recipe for an independent and free press, which is at the core of equitable development. The public look up to a professional, credible, and objective media to expose corruption and keep check on public policy by throwing a spotlight on government action. They let people voice their voice opinions on governance and reform and help build public consensus to bring about change. They also facilitate trade, transmitting ideas and innovation across boundaries. The Liberian media also is important in developing interests for human development, bringing health, education, and information to remote villages in our country. However, economic factors are often cited as constraints to media development in our country. As experience has shown, the independence of the media can be fragile and easily compromised if it lacks financial independence. Business training and other support like loan will help news outlets committed to responsible journalism become commercially sustainable, believing that only financially independent news media can stay editorially independent over the long period. Currently, the media in Liberia is struggling in the areas of finance, content, and professional capacity development. Highly related to a lack of media capacity is general socio-economic underdevelopment, coupled with bad taste of the media in some sector. Perhaps media investment is a low priority for state actors, and media consumption may not be a priority for the poorer segments of the population. Most media outlets, therefore, may not tackle news towards these segments of the population. Another area is political ownership of the media, which is also contributing to the bad taste being experienced by the public. Not all. Some politicians are using the media as political weapons. They must stop because trust is being invaded and the public perception depicting high level of professionalism in the media is growing. There is also a problem with the issue of trust and credibility in the media. This subject matter about fake news and hate speech is tied to journalistic professionalism and capacity. Therefore, a nationally owned media development program aimed at complementing donors' media development initiatives is urgently needed to employ in-depth reforms across the Liberian media. Consequently, we need collaborative efforts involving the Ministry of Information, Cultural Affairs and Tourism, MICA, the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning, as well as all relevant individuals and institutions managing Liberia's resources to look in the national coffers to ensure exhaustive reform. These reforms mechanisms will fully facilitate fellowship, targeting thematic areas like rural development, health, education, water and sanitation, women and children protection, governance, and the rule of law. This will help improve content across the media. Furthermore, investing in the media will attract professionals who have left to return to the newsroom. the Press Union of Liberia, and other national media development organizations, working with partners, are presently working on media development programs, working with the media administration towards the improvement of the legal operating environment of the media in Liberia. The UN is also drafting independent media commission bill, seeking state regulation, while at the same time maintaining financial media independence and using our National Media Council, which is a self-regulatory mechanism instituted to ensure professionalism and dispute resolution emanating from media product. This system of regulation is conducive to freedom of expression, pluralism, and diversity of the media. It will further provide an opportunity for appreciable level of economic playing field and transparency of ownership. We want to again commend the United States government, Usaid, and Internews for these reforms. Since the formation of the Usaid projects, our media community has been benefiting across the country. We want to again urge state actors to infuse resources in the reform process, because if our donors lack some resources or there's donor fatigue, all of the progress made by our donors will not yield fruitful result. But besides that, we are making progress, especially with community radio stations that lack the resources, some of whom are just relying on stipend for survival. Again, thanks to Usaid, Internews, or the United States government for this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Coffey. That's the president of the Press Union of Liberia. I have the master copy of the program, so please go along. So, and I'd like to invite the House Chair on Information and Broadcasting, Honorable Ava K. Jones, for remarks.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all. Let me begin by observing all protocols. I'm grateful to be here at this time. And I also want to bring you greetings from the Speaker of the House of Representatives, in person of Honorable Buffalo's Chambers. Let me commend our partners, the United States, and Usaid, Internews, our local partners, for their contribution towards the media sector of our country. As a government, we rely on the media for the dissemination of what we do. We cannot, as a government, be implementing at the same time disseminating the information of what we do. So we want to say thanks very much to the media sector, not excluding the Press Union of Liberia. And I was very thrilled when an official of the U.S. Embassy spoke here, and he commended the government of the Republic of Liberia for the free press. We have worked tirelessly. We have ensured that communication coming to us as a body cloth with the authority of passing legislation, especially in promoting free press, we can say to you that we will work together in ensuring that we promote free press in Liberia. The Kamara bill is a testimony to what the 54th legislature has done. And we are also hearing from the Press Union of Liberia and our partners that there are other instruments on the way to promote free press in our country. Rest assured, as the chairman on Information, Broadcasting, and Tourism, alongside with my colleague from the House of Senate, we will work along in ensuring that we promote free press in Liberia We want to say thank you very much, and you can count on our support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jones, for that commitment. And there is no way we can allow the House to speak, and we cannot give the privilege to the Senate. So we'd like to recognize the presence of the Chair on Information and Broadcasting at the Senate, Honorable Jonathan Ball-Charles Segme, to come and make some remarks.
So permit me to stand on existing protocol. Joe, I got your back, right? Thank you. So good morning to all of us again. I listened to a lot being said here today. Let me just arm a little piece. On behalf of the Liberian Senate, I want to thank Usaid and Internews for organizing such an occasion that will help empower and strengthen our media institutions. I am particularly keen on a piece of news that has been permeating the corridors of the media houses, which speaks to the creation of the independent commission on broadcasting. I think we've done a lot of talking around this subject, and nothing has been concretized. And that is one problem we have with our entire Liberian people. So let me urge all of you to try to put pen to paper, and let's try to curtail the information, the content in the information we are broadcasting by creating this commission so that we have some decent news coming out of our people. We have some decent news going to our people up there in the interior and other parts of the world. Because what the work you do gives the outside world a clear ear opener to know what's going on in Liberia. I also listened to my friend and brother here, Joel, who spoke of the participation of female journalists, especially in the hinterland, where I come from, River G. I think we have about 12 persons who are practicing journalists, because most people see this career as a temporary gratification. They don't seek to perfect themselves into the career. They just want to be there to have something to do presently, until they can find whatever they think they are finding. But this is an honorable and laudable career. And I must say thank you to all of you who have taken your time to try to practice journalism and do what you are doing, because we depend on you. I'm seated at the head of the Committee on Information, Broadcast, and Tourism, and I will be looking forward to seeing that piece of document, Mr. President of the Press Union, to come before us, and let's sit down and scrutinize it together and pass it, so that we don't keep talking, but let's do what we say. Thank you again on behalf of the Liberian Senate, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Senator. So we'd like to also entertain remarks from the LTA. The LTA is one of the important partners that we'll be working with. So we'd like to welcome you, Madam, to please come and make a few remarks. Can you please clap for her?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And please allow me to stand on existing protocols. We all know the media landscape plays a very important role here in Liberia and around the world. I believe that each one of us depend on this sector every day. Without it, we feel bare. The landscape includes print, radio, Facebook, internet, et cetera, right? So it's a very important part of what we do. Now, from the Liberian Telecommunications Authority perspective, I'd like to do small housekeeping that we haven't gotten to. You know, a couple years ago, prior to the coronavirus outbreak, we worked very closely with our partners, Internews, and we were able to work on a 5-year FM regulation. We went through the entire process through consultation. A majority of the FM stations was present. We transitioned from a 1-year license regime to a 5-year license regime. And some of the reasons why we all came up with going through with this transition is so that your investment would be secured because you have a license for a longer period of time. And I think at that point, everybody thought it was a wonderful idea. We all did. We still do, right? Yeah. I'll copy from Mr. Maybury. Yes. All right. So at this point, some bad news. Unfortunately, a lot of our operating have not taken advantage of this and transitioned to the 5 years frequencies. The LTA has gone through all of the required consultation and all of the final notices on all the media that we need to. So at this point, I would just like to take this opportunity to urge every media house, if you have not transitioned to the 5-year regime, please do so. The LTA, I myself enjoy what you do. I participate and listen to the stations, the music, and the education, the health tips. So I know you cut across all sectors, and we all appreciate what you do. And I want you to know that the LTA is here to collaborate with you and to help you through your journey. So I'd like to, on behalf of the LTA and all that we do, just urge that every entity please transition to the new regime. And just rest assured that you can count on us to hold your hands throughout your journey to success. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. She is the acting chairperson of the Liberia Telecommunications Authority, Honorable Edwina Crum Zappa of the LTA. And I hope the president of Liberia and Aliko are following her remarks. And we'll take the necessary action, right, Aliko?
Yes.
PUL. We'll take the necessary action, right? Okay, thank you very much. And so we move on. We now call on the Honorable Deputy Minister for Public Affairs, Honorable Jalawa Tompo, who will speak on behalf of the Minister of Information, Culture, and Tourism. Can you please welcome our minister?
Thank you. So, good morning to all. Let me stand on all existing protocols. And sorry for the bad quality of my voice. I bring you greetings from the Minister of Information, Honorable Legislator Julius Rennie, who is also attending another American program.
Yeah. Because of the importance attached to this event today, we have to reschedule our major Mika press briefing. So we have to, Honorable Legislative Julius Rene and the other team they have to go to your other program at the museum, and I have to come this way. So we are grateful. But the government of Liberia will like to thank Usaid for this 5 years program, reform program. And Mika will continue to collaborate with you as we implement this project. The government of Liberia will continue to ensure and encourage freedom of speech, free press, and stronger media in Liberia without being intimidated and harassed. But why, from the government angle, as we encourage the free press and as we enjoy the freedom of speech you move about, it behooves you also to be more responsible as you go about your duty. Let us also be mindful of our responsibility in the media. The government from time to time and at all times will protect all journalists within this country. Rest assured you can do your work, do your job more responsibly and ethically. You can do whatever you want to do as a journalist in your media institution by doing exactly what it requires of you. And we particularly want to thank UC for this reform project that you have brought. I know if Kamara was in this room, and my distinguished brother Peter Kukui was also in this room, the both of them will be happy. Thank you. Because those are the two parts, one is dead and one is alive. I know and I work with them as a journalist, and they have been advocating. They used to advocate, one used to advocate he's dead, and I know he is happy wherever he is. And with Peter Kukwe being in our midst, I know he's also a happy man. So let us all make use of this as journalists so that it's not just about attending or participating, but you attend, you participate, the knowledge you get, make use of it. Make use of it. Many a times we attend programs, and after the programs, we refuse to implement or make use of what we learn. Some of us just attend programs because of the certificate or papers. But there is no knowledge that is wasted. 5 years, half a decade, make use of it. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for the commitment on the side of the government. And also the warning to the media that you do the right thing. Okay? So we'd like to humbly excuse our lawmakers. As we all know, today is Thursday, and it's one of the session days. So we humbly like to excuse them from our presence. We'd like to say thank you so much. We appreciate your presence in our midst and the comments that you made. So we say thank you very much. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. So we'll continue the program. Yeah, can you please clap for our lawmakers? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So we'll continue with the program. And then we again call on the Chief of Party of the USAID Media Activity, Ms. Leanne Bach, to come and introduce the media activity team and local partners. We are working with partners, so she will come and do the introduction of the team so that you will know their various roles on the project.
Thank you, Towan. So before we go into more technical discussions this morning, I would like to briefly introduce the media activity team and our partners to you. With many of them, we have had a long and very fruitful working relation. So here is our internews team in Liberia. I would like to introduce first Jefferson, the Deputy Chief of Party, Senior Advisor. So Jefferson will lead our program.
Okay, you go stand. You go stand.
I want to introduce Towan. Towan is a senior journalism trainer. Samoa Fala, media lawyer. Tete Coleman, is Tete here? We have Elisha Blow. Elisha will be institutional capacity advisor and work with our radio partners and media partners. We have Marcus Armstrong, Yusuf, and Sami. Sami is the IT specialist in our team. We also have Christopher, who is leading the finance and operations team. Samuel, Ozzy, Christina, Evelyn, Tia, Dennis, and Gaia.
Can we clap?
We also have the EU project team here, Samuka, Julius, and Elizabeth.
Where are you?
For media activity partners, thank you so much, PUL. We have Charles, Danielle, Musa, and Arkoy that we working very closely every day.
Pierre, where are you?
From Fejao, we have Siata and Winnie.
Peter, where are you?
Hector and Camus from Aligo.
Alico.
John Colley, LMDI.
Oh,
Malcolm and Ruth from CMS. Varma and Abraham from YMA.
YMA.
And we have Talking Drum Studio, Vocal, and Richard. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Leanne. That was the introduction of the partners, the staff of Internews, and the major partners that the project is going to be working with. So now we'd like to call on Mr. Jefferson Massa, the Senior Technical Advisor He's like the deputy chief of party for Internews. And he will come and tell you to present on the selection methodology of 30 community radio partners. So the media activity was able to select 30 radio stations, mostly community radio stations, that we're going to work with under the project for 5 years. So Jeff is going to come to tell you how they were selected. So we welcome our senior technical advisor for Internews on the USAID media activity to come and do a presentation. Can we give him a hand?
Thank you so much, Tom. Okay, like Thomas said, this presentation is largely focusing on the methodology and the key outcome from the nationwide radio assessment. Because at the core of the project implementation, we are to support community radio stations across the country. And in doing so, we will not just sit in Monrovia and make the decision, but rather we have to get in the field. So between November 16 to January of this year, we're able to move across the country, and we're able to capture 163 radio stations across Liberia. So if you do the math, it means that a little over 30,000 persons in Liberia will have access to one radio station. So that's it. So before then, there were a lot of activities. If you look at our project design, it's more local driven. 80% of the implementation led by our local partners. From the design of the proposal to where we are, we largely involve the Liberian media partners, the 7 media partners in all efforts. So initially, before the assessment, we held a series of meetings with PUL, the Association Liberia Community Radio, FIJA, to draw their input into the design of the assessment. And like I said, it took us pretty close to 3 months. The assessment took a comprehensive review and inventory of all radio stations in the country with the purpose of selecting 30 partner radio stations to receive support from Internews during the 5 years, that is 2021 to 2026, because the project was awarded in August 2021, and the project will come to an end 2026, it's in August. This support will include a variety of capacity building activities such as journalism training, media business strategy development, technical upgrade, and equipment provision. They will also include the partner participating in media activities, organized program, like for example, the upcoming election will have a very huge engagement. So the partner selection approach was that the selection, first we did what we call the development of the radio assessment tool. The criteria and methodology for selection was designed through a participatory process that involved consultation with FIJA, Usaid, ALICO, and PUL. The second stage was the data collection process. The nationwide assessment was conducted by 3 teams that comprised of Usaid, PUL, ALICO, FIJA, and Internews. They covered the county as follows. So for team 1, we had Bapolu, Bomi, Grand Cape Mount, Lofa, and Nima. For team 2, we had Riverses, Sino, Grand Cru, Maryland, River G, and Grand Jide. For team 3, Grand Bassa, Maigibi, Bong, and Masurado. The third stage was the selection panel nominated by USAID. That is, we asked USAID to send their nominee on the selection panel. The same was done with PEL. We had ALICO, we had FIJA, and Internews. 2 representatives each from each of the organizations mentioned, gathered for 2 days, February 22nd to the 23rd, at Internews office to select the 30 radio partners. using the data from the National Radio Assessment. So this was a collective effort. Internews allowed the inputs of partners, like we said, from the design of our project to where we are. We largely involve the local partners because we want local ownership. The project is for 5 years. What happens after the 5 years? You will still have PUL here, you will still have ALICO, you will still have LMDI, you will still have CMS. So they need to lead on and be a part and they bear ownership, not to be passive, partners into the process. So that's why we saw it very key to our engagement. The selection of the 30 radio partner was based on the data collected during the National Radio Assessment. The following criteria were considered: the community ownership of the radio station, community involvement and participation in the management of the radio station, including the inclusion of marginalized groups, addressing gender equity, ensuring youth engagement, community-generated contents with an emphasis on local cultural and identities, independent broadcasting, transparency and accountability in practice through oversight by independent board, that is the Community Radio Station Board. Staff capacity was also considered, commitment of the radio leadership to make viable and sustainable change, geographical location, including providing services to underserved areas, both rural and urban. Proximity of the radio station was also key. Positive experience with previous external support, because the donor dependency and seeing that every time, okay, we'll bring this or we'll do this, the next project will come and we're going to benefit. So how did you manage previous support provided you? So these things were also taken into consideration. Population size, the population size the radio station served were also considered in the process. While the above are objective viable criteria, the panel more subjective knowledge of the country and the county and radio partners were also taken into consideration. Some of those that were on the panel, they've been in the media development for a good number of time. So we also try to tap on their expertise, their knowledge bank about the radio sector to make the decision. Though we had the data from the field, but the data was not only the yardstick for the selection. So that's why we had people from diverse expertise when it comes to the community radio sector to be on the panel. Therefore, the final rating does not necessarily reflect the overweight of the criteria setup. Selection committee. So the selection committee was, the radio selection meeting was held on February 22nd to the 23rd, like I said, at Internews office. And then our chief of party, Lane Batch, presided over that as the chairperson. And we also had our MAE specialist, Yusuf, who was the secretary for that. So here are the members of the committee. We have Luis Famula, our AOR from the DRG office, Democracy, Rights and Governance at Usaid. Mandy Dago, AOR alternative, under the media activity from the DRG office also. Hector Molba, the president of the Association of Liberia Community Radio. Kemu Dennis, also from Alico. Daniel Yankona, the vice president of the PEL. Akwe Besa, assistant secretary of the PEL. Siaka Scott Johnson, president of FIJA. We have Rose Warsaw, project officer. Towon Solonte Brown, senior journalism trainer at Internews. And Timothy Zakat from our regional office in Nairobi, our regional media business advisor. Using both the objective criteria with company scores, cards, and subjective knowledge available among the panel members, several key decisions were made in the subsequent selection of radio stations. Besides the obvious allotment by county, subsequent major selection decisions were based on community ownership, engagement, coverage of the population, and viability that provided support that could lead to sufficient improvement of the radio partner. In the end, the selection panel achieves some consensus on comprehensive scoring for the selection of the 30 radio station. An additional list of 5 potential radio partners was also created in case one of the selected partner radio station would drop out. So we have a reserve of 5 radio stations. Like we're saying, the first is that we're going to sign what we call the CBA with these radio stations, the capacity building agreement. And the capacity building agreement will spell out conditions as to how the radio station that will be supported, how they work within the scope of the project in achieving the goals. So, for example, we talk about business development, a business plan. So if a radio station will be trained to develop a business plan that could be funded, and then the station is reneging or has not obtained all the legal documentation, for example, does not have a bank account for the next 1 year, and you want us to give you money to improve the economy at your radio station, that will show that you're not adding seriousness to the effort so that we enhance, the market environment for that entity. So based on the review of the CBA, there will be a likelihood that some of the stations, will not actually following the terms and conditions. There could be some decision when we hope that we can reach those sort of a decision. So allotment of station by county. The panel concur with the allotment of radio station as presented by internews, whereby each county should have at least 1 community radio station selected. Its location to be considered for either the capital of the county or another underserved area where also 2 selected radio stations should not be located in the same area. So we have station A, maybe in Ganta, and then you take station B in the same Ganta. So what happened to other bigger communities that have radio and then they are not part of this effort? So we also took into consideration. So beyond the selection of the 30 radio partner by using media activity in the partner as an outcome of the nationwide radio assessment, critical data were also captured, needed to inform decision-making to enhance the radio sector of Liberia. And then here is a summary of that outcome. So if you look at the radio station allocation, Maserado we're able to capture 53 radio stations in Maserado alone, constituting 33% of the entire radio station assets. Next to Maserado is Bone. So we're able to capture 22 radio stations in Bone County, taking away 14%. And next to Bone was Nimba, 18 radio stations, 11%. And then the rest, 2%. Magidi also, a very good number of radio stations, and then 9%. Grand Bassa, 10 radio stations, constituting 6%. And the rest, you have 2, 3, just like that, especially in the southeastern region. So this is the radio ownership data. So we're also keen as to the ownership of these radio stations. So community radio, we're able to capture 65 radio stations to be considered in the community radio category, 1 state-owned. We also capture another category of radio station owned or linked to politician, which is around 25% or 42 of the radio stations we assess. So that speaks what is happening in terms of the media ownership across the country. And then faith-based institution, we had 22 constituting 13%, concession like Firestone, and then university radio. We also capture that. That is, for example, Tubman University, ABC University, the University of Liberia. So we have 4%. And then commercial or privately owned radio station, 15%. Station legal status. So we're also keen to know in terms of the legal status of these radio stations. So we captured 6 radio stations. They said they only have LTA documentation. And then we also captured 18 radio stations with only MICAP broadcast permit. And then we also captured 90 of these radio stations claiming to have access to both LTA and MICA registration. And then 44 of the radio stations could not establish or they never had both LTA nor MICA registration, constituting around 27% of the total radio station. And then 5 of the radio stations could not even just tell us that whether they have ever applied for LTA or MICA lesson. Yeah. So we came up to 163. The disaggregate, we wanted to know each of the radio stations when we try to capture the staffing and whatsoever. So we were able to capture 2,434 persons at the 163 radio station. Not everyone journalists. So you have people, providing technical support and finance and whatsoever, but those that participated in there. So it means that 74% of the total staffing of the station we assess were males, and then we have 26% to be female. Of the 163 radio stations, as of the time of the assessment, 22 of these stations were off, and we have 141 broadcasting live. So, especially in faraway counties, you have some of these stations faced with technical problems in about 6 months or more a year. So, basically, that's the key outcome of the assessment, that we'll be developing a very comprehensive report to share with our donor, more detail regarding the outcome and key recommendation that the LTA is there and other agency or government and partners could leverage. The second, as an outcome, as you can see the map there, is also the outcome of the radio assessment. So we have the GPS. We also had a GPS specialist or GIS specialist on the team that were able to capture the coordinates of all radio stations across the country, the GPS coordinates. So if you check on the map, you'll see the GPS coordinates apart from the radio station, the location. So that's the entire national radio map. And then we have copies here. We'll be sharing with partners, per institution, so that and then you can use it to inform some of the activity, especially development partners and other people. And then we also finalizing the National Media Directory as an outcome of this scene assessment that will also be available, so that if you want to get to any radio station across the country, online, print, media institution, media CSOs, we're going to have that available both in hard copies and soft copy for public use. So, and these things are coming as an outcome of just the radio assessment or the nationwide assessment the team did. So at this juncture, like we said, we selected 30 radio stations. So what we did was that we will create a space for our partners to officially announce these radio stations, as you will see. So the first will be the Association of Liberian Community Radio to come and announce the first 10 radios selected as an outcome of the partner work and as an outcome of the nationwide radio assessment. Aligo.
Thank you so much. So I have a list of 10 stations. Voice of Sando County, Greenville City. Voice of Grand Cru, Bakerville. Radio Jowar, Bon County, Jowar. Radio Bombing, Tottenham Bird, Bombing County. Radio Banga City, Bon County. Peace Radio, Town, Grand County. Radio Kagema, Ganta, Nema County, Radio Piso, Roberts Post, Grand Cape County, Radio Camp, Voice of Peace, Campley, Nema County, and Voice of Rural Monserrato, Mount Barclay, Monserrato County.
Thank you. So that's the first 10 radio stations selected as the outcome of our own work collaboratively with our partners. So let's go to the next. The Female Journalists Association of Liberia, FIJA, to announce additional 10 radio stations. Yeah, put your hands together for Madam President.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation. I saw that 26% were females, but bet me 50% of that 26% of those females are in administration, so they are not practicing journalists. So I have the pleasure to announce Voice of Plebo, Maryland County. Radio Senwe, Sanikole, Nima County. Radio G, Fishtown, River G County. Riverside Broadcasting Service, Chester City, Riverside County. The Voice of Tapeta, Nima County. Radio Kompa, Bapolu County. Radio Kakata, Magibi County. Radio Cape Mount, St. J, Grand Cape Mount County. The Voice of Sanoye Town, Bon County. And the Voice of Wezon, Grand Bassa County.
Thank you so much. So we go for the last batch, which will be done by the Press Union of Liberia. Daniel.
Thank you, Jeff. And we know that these assessments are used for reform in the media and not intended to shut down radio stations. So let me read my list. Radio Gbezon, Grand Bassa County, Buchanan. Smart FM, Grand Jide County, Zweju. Radio Kintoma, Lofa County, Vonjama. Vahun Community Radio, Lofa County, Vahun. Alternative Youth Radio, Lofa County, Zoza. Radio Tamatikor, Lofa County, Foya. Peace FM, Magibi County, Habel. OK FM, Monserrato County, Morovia. Prime FM, Monserrato County, Morovia. And Luke's FM, Monserrato County, Fenner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that clap was very, 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 very low. That clap. Torede Community Radio with commercial radio in Liberia, in Monrovia, selected to benefit from the USAID media activity, and that clap is so low like that. And some of the beneficiaries are in the hall. Some of the beneficiaries are in the hall, and you can't clap. Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks also to Jeff for a presentation on the selection process. And I hope all of us were following that this process was transparent because we had all hands on deck. Most of the time, we don't respect our Liberian colleagues, but at least we thank God that we had USAID on this particular process, and they were part of the process. So those that have been selected, all eyes are on you. And the reason why you were selected, the reasons were stated. The reasons were stated. And we hope that those of you that are in the hall will not disappoint the panel. Yeah, because there are other people on the standby. I wanna just spoke about that. You spoke about those on standby, right? Okay. So there are others on standby that are just waiting. So as soon as you sleep, they take your place. So we hope that you will not disappoint USAID. So we'd like to say thank you so much, Jeff, and to also our major partners, Alico, Fijal, and the PUL that serve also on the selection panel for announcing the recipients. So what we'll do now, we have the second session of this program, that is a panel discussion. We'll turn this aspect over to the Executive Director of CMS, Malcolm Joseph, who will moderate the panel discussion. So what we want to do now is to ask President of the Press Union of Liberia, because our panelists will sit here, to please join the Press Union of Liberia, and then also to ask the Chief of Party of Internews to please join other colleagues of Internews where they are seated. And then the minister is already seated, so we'll turn it over to Malcolm Joseph, who will call the remaining panelists to take the high table. Thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you very much, Tomo. Good morning, everyone. Indeed, we are happy that all of us are part and parcel of history making in Liberia as it relates to media development in our country. And I want to also thank previous speakers. I also want to thank previous speakers who have been commending the government and people of the United States through USAID for the support, and of course to the implementing partner Internews and the serving local partners for this all-important program. I've been charged with the responsibility to moderate this panel that deals primarily looking at the issue of media ownership in Liberia. And I will take 2 minutes to give you a background. Indeed, this forum has brought together panelists that we expect to dissect the current state of the Liberian media and how its ownership is impacting media content and journalism quality across Liberia. Liberia has seen a rapid increase of politically owned and/or regime-supported media institutions. Many of the outlets which are better financed than the independent media. The independent media is struggling to survive amidst rapid increase in the number of the new media outlets. The issue of every day there is the creation of one online TV, online radio, and what have you. Despite all of these, there is a major need to improve journalism quality in Liberia, where the independent media will ensure spaces for open dialogue and democratic debate. And to respond to this, we are posing this question: to what extent is media ownership impacting journalism quality in Liberia? And to answer to this question, we've assembled for you some of the best in our time as it relates to media development and issues around the media community. In no particular order, I want to introduce Mr. Frank Siwola. Mr. Siwola is the managing editor of the Public Trust Media Group. Mr. Siwola is a former Secretary General of the Press Union of Liberia. He also worked for the West Africa Democracy Radio in Dakar, Senegal, as head of the English desk. Mr. Siwola, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Next is our own Vice President, Mr. Daniel Yakuna. Of course, he currently serves as the Vice President of the PUL, outgoing Vice President. And we hope that he becomes the next president. We look forward to that. but that one is politics. And the president of Liberia is the umbrella organization of journalists and media institutions in Liberia. The PUL has a membership of over 1,000 individual journalists. Mr. Yakuna will also attempt, from his media development lens, from his trade union lens, he will also attempt to respond to the question around media ownership in Liberia. Next is the lady in black. And as she walked up, I just remind myself that today is Thursday. So
Thank
she's
you.
always in black on Thursday. Maybe she will tell you why. Madam Siata Scott Johnson is the president of the Female Journalists Association of Liberia. Madam Johnson is leading FIJA, that is a broad-based membership organization of women journalists that advocates for the right, protection, and promotion of women journalists in the newsroom. She has extensive knowledge of journalism. She has practiced as a journalist with various broadcast media entities in Liberia. And finally, is one of our own that finds himself on the other side of the coin, Mr. Jalawa Topo, a career journalist. He currently serves as Deputy Minister for Public Affairs at the Ministry of Information, Culture, and Tourism. Before taking up that post, he served as Director of Press and Public Affairs at the Liberian Senate. Mr. Jalawa Topo will also attempt to respond to the question as it relates to media ownership in Liberia. So we will proceed as such in the same order in which I introduced the panelists. Each of you will be given 5 minutes to make an opening presentation. And following that, we'll have an opportunity to receive questions from the audience, and then of course the panelists will respond. But just before I start with Mr. Siwola, I want to raise a few questions so that our panelists can begin to ponder around them as they attempt to provide their respective responses. At what level do you consider media editorial independence outside of ownership in Liberia? How does media ownership often affect editorial judgment? What is the implication of the current ownership of media houses on press freedom in Liberia? What can be done to revive media independence and objectivity? And finally, what is permeating the political ownership of media in Liberia? Mr. Siwola, thank you very much. 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. First, I like to go by the protocol set by the Chief of Mission. I think you know what's happening around the world. May we just stand for a moment of silence for our colleague who died in Ukraine. I saw one of the footages the other day, and it was painful because I covered the civil war in Liberia. I know what it means. And all our colleagues who have passed in the line of duty. Thank you very much. Thanks to Usaid and the congratulations to Internews for beginning this project. It is no doubt that the type and nature of media ownership to a large extent affects the quality of journalism demonstrated by journalists and by extension, the media institutions. In your invitation inviting me to be a part of this panel discussion, you sort of sum up the current realities. You said, and I quote, Liberia has seen a rapid increase of politician-owned and or regime-supported media outlets, etc. I can agree with you no more. I can agree with you no more. Independent media or independent journalism in Liberia and around the world is seriously under threat. A point I tried to hammer home around the eve of Christmas when I addressed the Peter Kwekwe School of Journalism 6th commencement convocation. But what is independent media? Nowadays, even propaganda, radios, and other media outlets brand themselves as independent media. I know of one of them which is owned by a deputy spy chief in Liberia. The term independent media refers to any form of media that is free from the influences of governments or private companies or interests. The media includes forms such as radio, television, online, etc. Now, why is independent media important? Let me share with you a very important quote from a public forum held by the Institute for African Administrations or Alternatives some time ago in South Africa. It says, the future of independent media is at a serious threat. Let me quote what it said. If you are going to have a media that speaks in the same voice, the voice of those who own and control it, that undermines media diversity and plurality. And once that is undermined, it also undermines democracy itself, unquote. But research studies show that the term independent media has varied, meaning from one geographical location to another. The term has varied in applications. I think we will expand on that as the panel discussion goes. The danger of a weakened or eroded independent media is grave. Let me share with you a quote from Reporters Without Borders, RSF. Said, without independent journalism, the news people get will be reduced to crude propaganda, unquote. In Liberia, the political establishment, the opposition and or elements in the opposition and others are doing everything to either cajole or buy up the remaining independent media or set up their own that will virtually or eventually silence the independent media to their selfish disadvantages at the detriment of the public interests. Internationally, two of the world's leading press freedom and journalism advocacy groups, CPJ and RSF, are constantly championing the cause of combating the threat to the independent media. The threat on independent media or independent journalism is global. In the US, the Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ, has been on the backs of governments to mitigate threats to journalism and news gathering. Back in 2014, CPJ has been outlining a pattern of surveillance of journalists and news outlets, as well as aggressive leak investigations. I refer you to a copy of a letter CPJ wrote to former President Barack Obama on January 22nd, 2014. According to RSF, the world has entered a decade that will be decisive for journalism. In its 2020 World Press Freedom Index, the annual report monitoring the state of free journalism around the world, RSF sees a series of potentially deficit interests against independent media. Because of the threat that independent journalism poses to authoritarian regimes, we see it across the world. President Vladimir Putin of Russia has also blocked access to both Western media and independent news sites in the country, and the new law criminalizes spreading information. The threat to the independent media in Liberia is real and is coming from the ever-increasing political ownership of the media in Monrovia and across Liberia. The current political establishment and politicians' increasing efforts to balkanize or weaponize the local media should sound alarm bells of the consequences and implications ahead of the 2023 presidential and general elections. As the countdown continues, you will see more. Thousands of dollars are going into media institutions to either weaken them or cajole them. The big question is, should we, ardent believers in independent professional journalism, allow them to get by? The big answer is no. In the run-up to 2023, as I said, there will be a lot. I pick up a sampling of some of the feelings of us journalists in Liberia at a recent program. Let me quote this last one before I take my seat. I step aside. They said the PUL, I'm quoting one journalist, the ambassador talked about good signs, aggressive journalism. He said, the PUL must stand against political ownership of the media. We see politicians opening radio stations all across the country. This is going to endanger the independent media and may even cause chaos in 2023, unquote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singula. We will quickly pass the microphone over to the Vice President of the President of Liberia, Mr. Daniel Yakuno.
Thank you very much, Mr. Malcolm Joseph. And to pick on Frank's conclusion, in the press union stand out political ownership of the media. That conversation reached in late 2019 with the escalation of attacks against journalists throughout the country. You will remember that there was this protest, unprecedented protest for journalists, and the submission of protest letter to President George Weah, which led to the constitution of a committee to investigate. After that, the results are pending, and we hope that they can come soon. But political ownership continue to honor the exercise of freedom, continues to honor the governance of the country, and information, provision of useful information to the public to contribute to the growth anticipated. So as stated by my president during his remarks, political ownership of the media is hurting professionalism in journalism. There are journalists who long to be professional, but once they work for radio stations or newspapers, which editorials are determined by their owners, the patient will become pawns in political battles. That continues to create the sort of bitter taste in content that we are experiencing. The impact you want me to reach for so quickly is that it's slowing down the useful and thoughtful governance conversation that we should be having, and that people are patient journalists who should be setting an agenda against political rivals to the detriment of the country. How long can we induce such destructive political strategy, if you may? There's no time. So we have to put our hearts together. Do we have legal regime somewhere in the world that bans politicians from owning media institutions? I've been searching, I've seen one, someone told me maybe Australia, but I'm yet to consult my friends in lawyering so that we confirm that and see whether we can model something to quite ban our friends who found it entertaining to use us against ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ekuna, for keeping within the 5 minutes time. Madam Siata Scott Johnson, President of FIJA, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. As per our topic, the impact of the media ownership on journalism quality in Liberia, let me first of all look at the word ownership. Who owns our media in Liberia? I know we have 5 types of major ownership. It will be sole proprietor, partnership, company, the public. In Liberia, got state-owned, and now we've added politicians. So the ownership of media institutions impact journalism quality in Liberia because every institution has its own policies. Media is a business, and we all know that. So when you run a business, you decide how you structure your business in terms of employees, in terms of your work plan and everything, who work for you, who manage your business, the content you put out there and everything. And so because media is a business, so the politicians are looking in that line of business. And as the vice president said, they're using that business to put us against ourselves. In our context in Liberia, journalism suffer massive brain drain due to the exodus of highly professional people in search of greener pasture. So we have a lot of regressions in the journalism profession. Why you laugh, John? We have a lot. I know. We have a lot of regression in that space. But most importantly, for ownership, who will want to sway the thought or the contents of what to place on the radio or in the newspapers. Another impact that weighs on the ownership is the recruitment, how individuals are being hired, thereby affecting the quality of journalism. Journalists in Liberia have little or no training or are not drilled through the rudiment of journalism, therefore it affects the quality they put out there. On the issues of salary, only a few journalists are fortunate to receive regular paychecks. Therefore, most of these trained journalists will leave because they want to have the regular paychecks and they want to be able to take care of their families. And this has an impact on journalism in Liberia. Lastly, equality has been a serious issue. So when I talk about equality from my perspective, I'm talking about gender equality. And again, it boils down to the ownership. So the owner agrees or agrees on who to hire. So because of the culture of male dominance and male intelligence, most of the owners feel that females are not as intelligent as males. So they prefer to have the males in the upper spaces and the females at the entry level. It all boils down to ownership. So we as female, we are still struggling for spaces in the newsrooms, on the radios, and to even have our bylines in the newspaper is also an issue. So as we look at ownership and we discuss ownership on the broader perspective, I want us to take all the smaller pieces into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Scott Johnson. Now the Deputy Minister for Public Affairs, Honorable Jalawa Togo.
I like to be very careful here
See whether
because
I'm
I'm
Still practice here to call you honorable. Still practice here to call you honorable.
I have to be very careful. Yes. Coming from the media background for 21 years and seeing my colleagues sitting side by side and sitting in the middle. And I'm becoming to suspect that the topic is taking a different trend. Instead of a media ownership, I see it being called a political media ownership. But yeah. So media ownership, I'll be very brief here. Media ownership cut across. And this includes the publisher, the delegates, networks of cinema, websites owner, radio stations, visuals and physical advertising space. And once you own a space or media in which the advertise can be bought. In Liberia, media ownership is open to anyone who meets the stipulated guidelines set up by the government. And it will interest you to note, just from the presentation by our partners, you'll see that there are a lot of many stations, radio stations that is just outlined. And per our database at the Ministry of Information, Cultural Affairs and Tourism, you realize for magazine, we only have 5. Community radio, 41, that we know of in our database. But of the actual of the past, 75. But yet the government is still open to them operating. For newspaper, 35, but in operation, 80. And actual numbers of radio stations that we have, 75. Now you listen to inter news projection. So, and the government has, from one angle to another angle, being always open to, media ownership, the news ownership, and what have you. So it left with us as members of the media how we operate. How we operate. The more we stand together, the more we are united, and all of us can open our own radio station once we meet the stipulated guidelines and pay those who we want to pay. Then you'll not be depending on politicians, quote unquote, as you call a political, ownership. So if you are, like, you have some of our colleagues here, I like to name John Colley. Yeah, been very strong, and he be very independent, and he got his contract from partners. So we have to be very careful how we operate, and not to shift the blame on government all of the time. With that, I submit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, and of course, I want to thank the panelists for their opening remarks. And I will just take maybe 3-4 minutes to just sort of try to refresh our minds. I'm sure all of us are refreshed already. The first panelist, Mr. Frank Singula, spoke about basically the general theme of the panel. He said that the independent media in Liberia is under threat. He spoke about government agents operating media, where he made reference on one deputy spy chief in his own words. He also spoke about, he said, without independent journalism, the news that people get, the consumers received, will be reduced to propaganda. He spoke also about the threats on independent media. He said that is global, it's not just unique to Liberia. And he concluded that the threat to the independent media is coming from politicians who own media institutions. He sees that as one of the greatest threats to the independent media in Liberia. For the vice president of the PUL, Mr. Yakuna, he said political ownership of the media undermines press freedom and freedom of expression generally. He said political ownership of the media is hurting professional journalism. That is the output of the output of the individual journalist. It thereby creates a better taste for the media. He called on journalists to stand up and resist politicians who own media institutions and at the same time attempt to control the content and the output of the entity. The FIJA president, Madam Seattle Scott Johnson, she laid emphasis on the ownership of the media. She spoke about editorial policies. Every media institution has their own editorial policy that may vary from institution to institution. She said journalism suffers a brain drain in Liberia. And she spoke about how people are recruited in the media space. She talked about looking at how recruitment are made, judging from a professional angle to make sure that we put in place the right people, well-trained, well-skilled people to run the media institutions. Because in essence, even if that media institution is owned by a politician, once you have a professional at the helm of authority that controls the content, we think that's a better way forward. She spoke about wages, the low wages of journalists. It's a very old song we've been singing. We hope that we can continue to improve upon that. She concluded, of course, I didn't expect to conclude without mentioning this, the issue on gender equality in the media. She said most of the media owners feel that female journalists are less competent. So in most instances, they sort of try to restrict them into the entry level in terms of not giving them that leadership role in the media. The Honorable Deputy Minister Topo said the media is susceptible to be bought once you sell airtime and spaces in your newspapers. He was squarely looking at the economic aspect of the media, which he seemed might have some level of influence on the media, the independence of the media itself. He spoke about government's tolerance, about media institutions that are operating without meeting the requirements and guidelines set out by MICAT, the LTA, and other regulatory bodies in Liberia. So with this refresher, we will open up to you, the audience. You may raise your hand if you have a question to ask or comment to make. You may raise your hand and call your name and your institution. And when you are recognized, and we ask that you will take just a maximum of 1 minute to get your point across. So let's just go straight to the point. Yeah. And my panelists, I hope you can take note for the questions that will be directed at you.
Okay, this question goes to the minister. When we talk about the ownership issue,
yes, we take a couple of questions first.
The independence of the media, like folks earlier talked about media being a business. There are two different sections: the business aspect and the editorial aspect. When the two the lines have to be drawn fine. It should be a fine line so that you cannot have the business aspect of the media impacting the editorial aspect. That brings you to the question of flow of resources. Sarah, independent, quote-unquote, independent media institutions in Liberia sometimes struggle to keep their doors open and to pay their staff because they claim that they don't have advertising funding. The government, arguably, is the biggest advertiser in Liberia. So my question to Mr. Topo. Mr. Topo, what do you think the government, what would be the own view about the government distributing advertising so that other independent and critical media institutions can also stay afloat so that they cannot get strangulated because they are critical.
Thank you.
Yet they can get a very swiftly.
Thank you. Next.
Okay. Yeah. My name is Robin Dogo, and I work for the Liberian Civil Commission. I'm concerned. Sorry, I'm being biased in my question. But I'm concerned about the exclusion of the print media in this project. We talk about independence. We want the media to be independent, but print media is excluded, and we are invited to carry the news. At the end of the day, the print media is responsible to publish the releases from your activities. We are struggling to pay staff, yet the exclusion of a 5 years program only the radio. So are you telling us right now that the print media is sufficiently in terms of money to survive on their own without the help of international partners? Because this is about radio and like the
question quick.
That's my question. So I'm just
okay, thank you. So, Jeff, please take note.
Yeah, so the PA president,
question for you.
So Cyril Pontier, he said that the media need low. So if you want to focus on community radio, so what about the print media? Okay. Are we not priority for USAID 5 years media engagement project for Liberia?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, because of time.
Jeff will respond to that. No,
let's go to the.
Let's take the question first. Yeah, yeah. No, This way, his hand being up.
Yeah. My question is actually for the Ministry of Information. But before that, I have one or two comments.
1 minute.
So I've listened to all of the panelists, and I mean, we've had this conversation like 15 years now. In terms of regulation, we don't see any stronger regulation as it relates to the media landscape. Who can own a media institution is not clear, or who should or who may is something that we need to understand. How do we regulate this market? It's not very regulated. Because even when you mention politicians doing radio stations, we do not know whether they are assessed to know whether they fulfill all of the technical requirements or capacities. So with this, I would like to hear from the Ministry of Information that has had that has done that functionality over a number of years to let us know what exactly they do in terms of regulating, the media landscape or media businesses. Transparency. I think it's important for us to know the whole media owners accountable as to who owns what institution. Media owners should be able to come clean and say, I own this radio station, I own this newspaper, this is my stance, this is my mission, this is my vision. I think that will help to a great deal. In terms of growth, too often we treat media entities more or less as service delivery. We do not see them as businesses. So in terms of regulation, when people aspire to open media entities, it's good to understand what capital you're investing.
Yeah.
But also, what I'm gonna need to appeal on your question.
No time. Yeah.
But also, we need to know what technical capacities they have. I think that will go along with. But I'm waiting to hear from the Ministry of Information how they regulate, media businesses. Thank you.
Okay. Go to Phil.
Please take your feet. Thank you very much. Phil Tapet Dixon, Councillor at Law. In this program, I reflect on the 50th anniversary of President of Liberia that was held in Buchanan. We are happy to have been the keynote speakers. And as we are talking of regulation, there's almost always a fine balance in what you want. At that time, Ministry, we had a question. Journalist salaries, if they are not paid on time and you go for the entity, are you carry on proper regulation or are you muscling the press, who may actually be underfunded? And you are going to face that same challenge even as you engage with the LTA. When an entity is not able to pay fees for 5 years, and the LTA is intervening, it's a muscling the press, it's a proper regulation. If Jimmy wants to open a radio station and somebody starts him, is it muscling the press or is it proper regulation? I would suggest that the dialogue on these topics should go on in depth to ensure that at the end of the day, with the urgency of an election year pending, we don't create rooms wherein our colleagues will end up being problematic. And just before I close, let me just mention that it's not all journalists that die in the course of their job. I'm privileged to be married to a journalist, so she got married in the course of her job. So there are some good things and bad things that happen to journalists. Thank you.
Okay, Daniel can take notes of that question.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Boku Stewart, and I represent Journal Rage, which exclusively puts on queer issues in Liberia. A couple of years ago, and this question goes to Daniel. A couple of years ago, I think a year or two ago, an article was published online called "Removing the Tusk of the Elephant in the Liberian Media."
and specifically the article dissected some of the challenges the media in Liberia face. So, and one of the things, specifically looked at was the issues of, salary payment for journalists and how, because they are being paid starvation wages and it compromises, in many ways that editorial-wise. So now, relative to the question that, that's relative to the things that she talked about, wherein, she mentioned technical capacity before opening a media institution. So now I'm wondering, what role is the Press Union of Liberia playing, technical-wise, with people who wanted to open media institution to ensure that they actually have the capital to pay journalists, to make sure the institution is financially sustainable so that it doesn't in any way compromise the independence of journalists.
Thank you. We'll take two more questions.
Thank you. My name is James Kwabo from the Alternative Youth Radio. Mr. Minister, I want to ask you on this topic precisely with respect to your reference to tolerance. Is it a matter of tolerance or weakness on the part of government? You say you don't have a figure that they introduce using program.
No, I didn't say so.
You say a weakness on the part of government that you don't look out the door which institutions are operating in the country, and you still have the authority to give accreditation to media institutions. Does that suggest that there's a need for the establishment of the Independent Media Commission?
Are you registered as well?
Hello, everybody. My name is Titus Tupper. I come from Media Information, the Integral School of Journalism. My concern has to do with the report from the team that was displayed. And my interest is basically about, there were a couple of community radio stations that were listed. And according to the survey, these were stations that are not registered. There are media institutions that have been put in for permit relative to what my colleague from the Alternative Radio just mentioned. So to the government of Liberia, if that survey is telling us that there are a couple of stations that are not registered and they are in the public space, do we know who owned it? That is one question on the issue of political ownership. If you check it out, some of those stations that are in the rural area that are not registered might be owned by some politicians. And they might be using their power to abuse the public space. So we need to investigate to know the owners of those stations, one. And if these stations are operating illegally, there are media professionals who want to apply for permit for their institution. Like, for example, the issue with Patrick Horner, Punch FM. Punch FM at one point in time had a license, said they applied for license at LTA on the latter part of Ellen Joseph Selu regime. Coming to the CDC government, the government said Punch FM did not have a license. They have been in court. There has been written a rule on the issue. The matter is still before the court. Up to now, Punch FM has not received a license. And we have radio stations that, according to the survey, that are not legally established.
Okay, we'll take the last question from John.
Female, wants to ask a question. And a female. If not, John will close.
No female to ask, the dialogue close.
Right from Frank to the minister, I had you trying to draw a big contrast between what Ms. Borden said about flourishing media in Liberia in your context, the situation of media ownership. And I hope political ownership is not construed to be one group of people. Because on all parts, on all sides, people are establishing political radio. In Tapita, I saw Lewai Radio, which is owned by Twin Glikia, allegedly.
Confirmed.
Just next, behind the Voice of Tapita. Interesting. But what I like to say is that it's difficult to pin down on who will own a radio station in the context of government allowing who owns the radio. Because everyone has a right in terms of business to own property and business in the context of media. My thing then will be that if we want to draw, and this is a suggestion, not a question, if we want to control a bit of political ownership, we will have to go for the purpose of establishment, which the government is already doing. All radios in this country are established for purpose. So you come as a church group, ELWA, we were established to preach Jesus Christ. So you go to community A, Tapita, we are community radio, while at the Rose. So if Twin Glikia wants to open a radio, ask him why is he opening one? What will be the purpose? That to me will be a way to go. But to blanket say that you want to control ownership without asking why, the purpose of the ownership, then that would be a problem. If you say you want to broadcast politics, that would be good. One time,
Okay. Thank you very much for the comments and questions raised. I'm sure not all of our panelists got questions directed at them, but we give the opportunity to those who have a couple of questions to respond to. I think we start with Frank, then we'll come to Daniel, and then we'll get a minister, then we'll take closing comments from all four of them.
Actually, quickly, I would like to say the fear that some of us who are vocational journalists have about this political ownership, and I'm glad John mentioned that it's not only the pro-regime people. I know of a very big wig who is about to open a radio station shortly. So the fear is that we're in an era where democracy is under threat. And in this part of the world, radio, if not used wisely and professionally, it has the tendency to spew hatred, violence, hate speech, and other things. So my fear from this perspective, you see what's happening in Guinea. You see what's happening in Mali. It can happen anywhere. If there's no vibrant, independent media in that country, the change that they will have to make in favor of democracy will take a longer time. I know what happened during the war. I actively participated in helping to stop the fighting through radio. So the fear is that if there's no control of this ownership, and one thing that is happening, the cash violence, people will man those radio stations when there's crisis. You will see the real open impact of the consequences of that. So what we're saying here is that our attention should be called to this. And one period that this flame will blossom will be election time. You never know if those radio stations are not handled properly and professionally by professionals. The support, we're in for trouble. That's my fear.
Thank you, Frank. Daniel? 2 minutes.
I wish I could pass my time to Frank. I love to listen to him. To answer the question from my good friend, we talk about proper regulation versus muscling of the media in the context of the LTA framework. I'm sure the rationale is to improve the operating environment of the media and not to heavily tax the media into debt. So that sorry. And that we hope we can continue the conversation with the Liberia Telecommunications Authority. There's room, I know, Madam Atin Chair, that we can have that conversation in a new FM reg that will represent the media economy. I like to borrow the phrase from my friend. He talked about the starving wages of the media and the intake of those media institutions to even paying the taxation you will be doing. If not, if you know that reality, you will be putting figures up on the sheet and will not be able to pay, and you will arm yourself very well to shut us down. In that way, we'll carry the news that you will trigger happy to shut us down. And another thing there about that control is that I'm tempted to say, to complete Titus Topaz's point, that Punch FM, which was doing everything legally right to register and open, was giving very difficult checkpoints. And as it is right now, they're now on air. And we've discovered, I was part of that survey, that assessment report you saw, and we discovered that there are too many people who just bought transmitter and they're all over the place and broadcast. Some of them right here in Monrovia, Madam Chair, and you know them. And so we hope that we will not be using these things to target people. Diversity in the work we do is important for democracy. The last one was the press union role in the provision of technical support for the establishment. As it is right now, the current legal regime, the press union has no power whatsoever to provide such technical support. What we know is that all of the requirements are there for MICAT. They will require you to put the editorial team and what have you so that you establish your radio station or newspaper. What we do is advocacy, and we play a trade union role in making sure that some of our people who are not paid for 26 months can be paid.
We will take Minister. We'll take the Minister, then we'll close with Jeff.
Oh, no.
No question targeted to me.
So, I mean, it is good that this topic was brought out, and we like to thank Internews again. I listened to all of the questions, and I knew exactly that, questions would have been directed to the government of Liberia. I suppose if you watch the terms of events, if you watch the media landscape, what's the statistics are just read to you. So, like I said from the onset, right? And this is where the government, especially so our Department of Communication, will have to, and we are getting ready. Now, take for example, we have this morning when I was talking to the Director of Communication, people have to go at the ministry to register. Even for the 41 that we have on record, they have not even come out to re-register or to renew. But if we start to ask them, like the counselor was saying, people will start to say, you are getting at the media, you are muscling the media. So we have to be very careful. Even some of my colleagues in the media, in the room, are asking questions. If we should ask them what are the media institutions they're running, are they legitimate media institutions they're running? Are they recognized media institutions? We have to, let me cut the space by space. Okay? So the government of Liberia is not prepared. What we will do and will take account to it. Some of the community radio stations we're talking about today, or the community radio station you're talking about today, people just take, when they find the, how they call it, the transmitter, they go and do the setup without reaching to the National Communication Bureau. And we find it so difficult. It is not about being weak. It is about being open to the media institution, media, so that everybody can have the free space to operate. But again, we are looking for responsible media institutions. Uno. So if you want to run your media institution, it is important that you come to the government of Liberia, Ministry of Information, and then you go to LTA. Coming to the issue of the arts, it is important, and this is an issue that we keep talking about. I've even met the Publisher Association. They have raised the issue over and over as to how government, being the sole, the art provider, can provide art to media institutions to help them pay the staff. And I think that discussion we've been having it on and on, and we are closing on it. That's all I can say about that.
Even though no question was directed to me, but when John mentioned the issue of asking the media owners what their intents are wanting to open an institution, I think it's good, and I would like to throw that at the press union. I know we have as a union, we have no teeth to break, but we are there into advocacy. So if there is a way we can try to come in to understand that before you open a media institution, in as much as the ministry will ask you for your staff, your editorial staff listing, it will also be good that we can ask you for your policy that you'll be using to run this media institution. Because we also noticed that a lot of the media institutions have no policy. They only open the station and again for the business, and they're running with it. So that we can look at as a union.
While the discussion is ongoing, we take a comment from the acting chair of the LTA. Then after that, we will
Okay, thank you very much. The LTA is the government's technical arm for monitoring and regulating the sector. So we don't deal with content whatsoever. We deal with the frequencies, interference, the distance at which you're covering, etc. All right. We are very aware of the major proliferation of stations popping up all over the place. And that's the reason during my intro, I made that comment. Okay? There is a regulation in place, and we do intend on following it. We did proper consultation. Now, I had mentioned that the regulation came in place right before the major pandemic. So it was so inappropriate at that time to start to execute for our own safety and for yours. We always love to work along with our strategic partners. That's you. So by no means do we want to muscle arm you. We want to collaborate with you and work with you. And so the government, through the Ministry of Information, who is the entity that regulates content, and the LTA that regulates the frequency that you do have, we will always collaborate with you, and we're giving you this opportunity now to regularize, please. I just pulled up our regulation. It is published on the eMansion website, and it's also on the LTA's website, and it's been there since 2019, since it all went into effect. I simply want to share with you that the fees are not as large as you would think. For community radio stations, the application fee is 100 United States dollars. Okay, one time.
Application.
And the license fee is only 150 United States dollars per year. That's for the community station. The campus radio station is $100 application fee with $500 annually.
You're getting that.
Yes. Now we have four regular tiers, four regular regulatory licensing tiers, and it depends on the county's population. Okay, so I will start. There's A, B, C, and D. For the first tier, which is the population greater than 100,000 people, it's $200 one-time application fee, and it's $3,000 per year. That's for your larger communities. We did. For your second tier, you have tier B, type B, $150 application fee, and it drops down to $1,500 per year. The third tier is $100 application fee and $1,000 per year. And the fourth and final tier is $100 application fee and $700 per year. So we've broken it down. We did proper consultation, like I said before, and we feel like we all agree that these fees are manageable. Okay, and I think what I heard before from the Usaid, and the purpose of this is for this sector to build that business case, to be able to develop more revenues, to be able to sustain yourself. So just remember, in closing, that we're here to work with you. So I expect to hear my phone ringing and my door being knocked at. Oh no, I'm sorry. These are legal regulations.
Okay, yeah, please. To respond to the question from the colleague from the Observer.
Okay, thank you. So that's why we mentioned heavily about the community radio sector. At the inception of this project, or we were developing the proposal, we also consulted with the Publishers Association, which is heading all the print and online news agency. So we have key activities. Internews Global, we have what we call the Media Business Unit that will largely where we selected print news outlet in Liberia, which was already started engagement with the Daily Observer you come from. Recently, our regional media business advisor was here from Nairobi, and we visited Daily Observer. So we're going to be providing more technical support, especially for the print media in terms of increasing their online presence and ensuring that they have the type of setup online that will help increase their revenue stream utilizing online monetization. So that will be the targeted support for the print media under our digital readiness initiative of this project. And the media business unit in Nairobi will largely support that, along with our local media business advisor on the ground.
Also, the specialized training.
Yeah, the specialized training, investigative journalism training, specialized training, and also the internship program, where we're going to have university students placement at select print news outlet. And those print news outlet will receive minimal support for the hosting of those university students. So directly, they will be involved in the process in terms of our technical support. So the print media is not left out of the process. They are very crucial to this work we are doing.
You just had an oversight. Don't defend it. That was an oversight, right?
That's not an oversight.
Wait
a minute. Hello. I'm the moderator for now. That was not an oversight. They presented a community radio assessment report.
was not on media.
How they
It was
report?
not on media
Yeah.
assessment.
No, it was not media assessment. Okay. Two of my panelists want to respond, so I will give them the opportunity to respond in their closing remarks. So you have a maximum of 2 minutes each to respond and make your closing remark. So you will be the last honorable minister.
Okay, no problem. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on this very important topic concerning media development for Liberia. And I would like to say it has started conversation around how we can control political ownership of the media. And to pick on John's point about us providing reasons why we go to open the radio station, I think that regime is already at MICA. They are providing reasons why we own radio stations. You have to, like, to use this phrase, the Jesus Christ radio. They have to preach and promote the gospel. If we want to open the political radio, we tell them, but we will have to also be critical of that. With intolerance on the rise, people who don't like John's face will also just stop in if you want to own a political radio station. So the conversation is good. We can always talk about it. To close with my new friend, LTA, yes, we will be knocking on your doors, but as you read the fees, you attended the detail, we saw the increasing. Good by him on heads. I like the way you did it. 200,000 present, 3,000, 5,000, 5,000.
No 5,000. No 5,000.
So, but yes, the conversation will continue with you. And we should match that by the revenues of these entities, because if you go to visit them, we encourage you to visit them. We'll have to take a tour so that you see some of them. Some of them are quite the definition of Liberian small businesses. But LEC trips for the general to come on is difficult. If you require them to pay application fee, I don't know what that application fee is for. But good is revenue again. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Seta?
Thank you so very much. I want to say thank you to Usaid and Internews for this media activity project and for making us a major partner. The conversation around ownership will continue to be around. We'll continue to have this conversation because it plays a major role in the kind of quality we give out as media institutions. Again, it's something that we'll continue to talk about, the issue of policies and everything, because we know the content, as the LTA boss said, the government do not control the content. So we as media practitioners, we are the ones that control the content. So we need to have policies and other instruments that will help us to tailor our contents that will include, I will include women voices. So it all boils down to policy. So we still continue to work with media institutions and ownership, and owners, around the kind of content that we give out to the citizens. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Two things. First, I would like to suggest, I made a suggestion some time ago, to ensure independent media, some of these development groups, democracy development groups, must be looking at setting up some sort of endowment fund to support independent media institutions. Secondly, I'm not one of those who believe that because you media, you shouldn't pay taxes or anything. We must learn to follow the law. Before I came up with my first print edition, I went to MICAT, I registered. I registered my entity in 2014, and I only went online in 2017. Every year I was paying my business registration. So I think media people are not above the law. So whatever law existing, we must be in line. Thank you very much.
You know exactly where I wanted to pick up from. Yes, you know.
Patient for you.
You want to add that up again?
No, it's clear.
the thing about it is that why it is true that we have to run our media institution. Let us pay our taxes. At the Ministry of Information, Culture, Affairs and Tourism, the annual permit for community radio is $200. Just $200. Just
Community radio.
for non-commercial is $350. For commercial is $500.
In addition to LCA.
For the papers it's $200. But even at this, if I give you the breakdown, I don't want to name papers and institutions that are in compliance. It was starting to know that people, by the time they register once, they're gone. But if you went to their house or to the institution to close it down, the next day the paper will carry the government is coming down hard on media. So we are before I close, I'd like to beg all of us. I'd like to beg all of us. Pay your permit due. Registered with the LTA, come to the Ministry of Information.
Pay for that announcement.
And do exactly what you have to do. I mean, as media practitioners, we must live with, by, and under the law. We cannot operate just as we want to operate. Again, I'd like to thank Internews and the Usaid, and we will always be on the standby. We have always collaborated with you, and we'll continue to collaborate with you. I'd like to thank the moderator, Malcolm, and the rest of you. Thank you so much.
Now, also, I'd like to thank all of you, the panelists, for a very good presentation and your responses to the questions that came forth. Indeed, I think we are making progress in addressing the issue of media ownership in Liberia. And all of you attested to the fact that the political ownership of media institutions is having an impact, a negative impact on the media space in Liberia. So as we all get towards trying to improve the media space, we hope that we can take cues from that and make sure that professional journalism is the hallmark of the day. And I want to close by appealing to Mikiat in terms of your annual registration fee you spoke about. I had an experience quite recently when you apply for your annual fee, you pay, even if you pay in November of the year, they give you an expiration date of December 31st. Yeah, you know, they say they run a calendar year. So even if you pay the 30th of December, it will expire December 31st. So I think you guys need to. I hope you guys can relook at that, and be able to address, because these are some of the constraints that media is set. So thank you very much, Mr. Minister, and thank you, Frank. Thank you, and thank you everyone for participating. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we clap for our panel? Can we clap for our panel? And we'd like to say thanks to Daniel, Sierra, Jalawa, and Frank, and also to Malcolm for moderating that session. I think it was really educational and interactive. And that those of our media partners that are here, media owners, I'm sure we are getting some level of education and we are taking home something. So we are almost at the close of this program, but let me just announce that after the program, Minister, you leaving? We want you to please take a photo with us. So right after the vote of thanks, we should be very short, and then we will have, a group photo. We should have done that before the panel discussion, but it is not it's still late. So right after the vote of thanks by Mr. Fala, we have a group photo, and then we can view, we have photo gallery, and we can just look around, and then we go for refreshment. Mr. Fala?
Thank you. Afternoon. Good afternoon to all. On behalf of Internews Liberia, I'd like to say thank you for attending this wonderful program. I know all our guests have said all, but just few things I want to say here now. These kind of projects are projects where the beneficiaries are not few people. The beneficiary of this kind of project, the entire nation and even beyond. It's not like agriculture project where you say you empower one farmer. So we really need your collaboration. Even if you don't like some of the proposals that we're going to make, it's not individual driven, where we see that level of resentment. They try to propose the media law, which I don't have interest in. We think it will take some power from people or from institutions, so we don't want to support it. Then it becomes a stone, it becomes a block to having that law passed. So if you don't like the legislation or the law we want to propose, give your effort and pass it for future generation. Laws are not made for today. If you disagree with the law, the future generation, they will embrace it. Some of the laws that we have in our book today, people don't agree with it. Everybody don't have to agree with the law. So we just need that level of collaboration from our colleagues, from partners in the government, in the private sector. Please, let us talk together. Let's sit. They are heard the issue about the community radio frequency issue. The PF Vice President expressed that this determined that there were issues in the law. They didn't go for validation. According to him, he didn't say it, but as a media lawyer, these are things that are listened to from people in the media, people in government, other places. So the FDA did this, or the PF did this. Because the level of collaboration apparently wasn't there. Time for validation, people will stay away. Then when the law is passed, they come to criticize the law. And the validation level is the time you have the opportunity to bring in all the information you have, all the ideas you have, to critique it there. Once you make your points there, it's not going to be forcing the law. Law are passed and people collectively say, yes, they pass it. So it is my appeal to you. As you go on with the reform process, we need that level of collaboration from you. Express your dissatisfaction at the validation and the drafting level. Don't allow pass the law, then you come and say, oh, we didn't agree to it. So thank you for coming once again, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. So, those that are taking the photo, where can we stand? Where is the right position? We should go outside. Okay, so can we all just go outside? We'll do our photo there. And after the photo, we have gallery. We have the gallery where we have photos. You can come and see what was done. The team that was in the field doing the assessment of the radio stations, come and see the radio stations and what has been done. And from there, we can go for the refreshment. So thank you very much. Can we just go now? I think we've spent a lot of time. So can we just go, do the photos, and then we can have chat and then out there.